So thank you for joining us. Those of you who are here, one of the things, i.e. institutional effectiveness, we try to do is share information about our processes to make sure campus has information, especially when it comes to our strategic plan and other planning components, so that you have an opportunity to share this information with others and be a integrated part of our planning process. Today we have Paul Mines, our IT business tech analyst, myself, Sabrina Senzel, Interim Director of Research and Equity, Rhonda Farley, our SLO coordinator and ESL faculty, and Dr. Clara Oliveros, our Vice President of Equity, Institutional Equity Research and Planning. So we're going to go over for today in the next 20 or so minutes, kind of review the purpose of the strategic plan here at Cosumnes River College, review the process that we used to create the last one, and what are we doing right now, given that it's been 6 years, and what are we doing with our plan as it stands. And so just kind of a background about CRC's strategic plan. Typically, the plan is developed to create a 6-year plan. It creates overarching goals aligned with this district's strategic plan. In there, what it's supposed to operationalize is our college's mission, vision, values. So the timing of this is really imminent, given that just last spring, 2021, the college revised and affirmed its mission, vision, and values. And so appropriately, reviewing your strategic plan to ensure that it's designed to help you operationalize that is a part of the process. And lastly, the strategic plan does drive our planning and resource allocation processes. We've integrated it with our assessment and our program review, and also how resources are allocated across the college. And I mentioned this too, we tried to align and stay aligned with the district strategic plan, which is usually a year ahead of our cycle.
So I'm just going to take you through at this point the process for which we revised our strategic plan during the last cycle. I was also on the college planning committee back then, which is now the Institutional Effectiveness Committee. So it's pretty involved with that process. But basically, and all this documentation can be found in the current strategic plan document if you wanted to go back and read more specifically about how it was done the last time. But basically what happened was the college planning committee, which is largely responsible for defining planning processes, not for planning, but for defining the processes for planning. And the strategic plan steering committee defined and facilitated the process. And the start of that process actually involved this thing called a SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So the college planning committee developed a survey with a bunch of data. You might have remembered it was a pretty extensive survey, and sent it out to the campus community to do this SWOT analysis. We took the feedback from the campus community on the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and used it to inform developing the strategic plan. And then the bulk of the work was conducted by 5 work groups who were convened to specify the goals, strategies for each of the 5 areas. And those 5 areas were actually aligned with a district strategic plan that had already been developed. And these work groups were multi-constituency groups. They had students and faculty, classified professionals, administrators that really did a lot of the legwork in specifying what the goals were and specifying what the strategies were, and then even specific activities to carry out those strategies later on. And so we also did a couple of very large summits. And the summits had 150 participants across constituency groups. In addition to that, we had extensive conversations and vetting throughout the participatory governance process of these strategies and goals. And we also had extensive conversations at the 2017 convocation breakout sessions. I remember that one specifically because Sabrina and I went to each work group and talked about the indicators of achievement. And there was a very strong attendance in each of those groups. So I remember the conversations that we had. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to Sabrina to start us off on what we're going to do this time around. So go ahead. if she's there.
So, yeah, I'm here. Thanks for a moment. So part of the reason why, so obviously with the heading, it's let's update. So we recognize that the district is planning to, or has already reaffirmed its current strategic plan. And that was meant to sunset at the end of last academic year. So that's going to continue. And so to maintain that alignment, we felt, well, given the goals of access, success, equity, teaching and learning, workforce development, and organizational, and I think it was workforce learning or work learning environment, those all still remain applicable, but we could do some work to bring it up to speed and still maintain alignment with the district's plan. So one of the focus that we hope to do is, or one of the things we hope to do is use the strategic plan goals and structure, but really review and critique and perhaps revise and update the strategies and indicators of achievement. And I might be getting ahead of the slides, Paul, apologies. And so what we're gonna lay out for you is a timeline, and this timeline and process was proposed to the Institutional Effectiveness Committee last fall, and then also presented and approved by the Participatory Governance Council. And really the process really reflects how we went about updating our mission, vision, values last spring, and relying upon the last strategic planning process. But one of the things I wanted to share about the mission, vision, values update that we managed to do remotely was really the integration of the student voice and utilizing technology via Canvas to administer that survey, get feedback from students about the mission, vision, values. So one of the things we want to really call out is, in addition to constituency groups having input, we want to make sure this planning document also gets some input from our students as well, much like we did with the mission, vision, and values. So I might have mentioned this. Oh, sorry, Paul, go ahead.
So as part of this process that I'm going to talk about in a second, in terms of the timeline, we set out some goals for the strategic planning process this time around. As Sabrina mentioned, that since the district had updated their strategic plan and a lot of the goal areas seemed to be relevant, we're just going to sort of do a brief update. This also benefits us because people are kind of at their wits' end trying to transition to remote and then go back, and it's kind of, there's not a lot of overhead to do a full revision as well. So the goals of this process are to kind of retain the current structure of the strategic plan, make modifications or simplifications of the strategic plan to keep it up to date, and then also align it with other plans, other major plans on campus, like We Won't Fall. And then to make sure that it represents the mission, vision, and values as well. And then another thing too is, this is perhaps the most important thing, is to make sure that we're being inclusive and incorporating the feedback from all constituencies. So faculty, classified professionals, management, we made that plural there, managements, but management. And then it also, especially students. So we'll probably distribute a survey through Canvas again this semester. So basically we want to make sure that people can give feedback at each stage through the process of revising our strategic plan and reaffirming it. And then also we want to, as a goal of the strategic planning process, start to define how we can make the strategic plan more of a living document, and align it with this new district process where they'll do maybe minor updates every year to be more responsive to the changing educational environment that we live in. And the plan is something like this. So this semester, we're going to be working on updating the goals and strategies for the strategic plan. And so the first thing, like before, when we did our strategic plan development back in 16-17, is to do a survey with the campus community. And so keep an eye out. We'll actually be sending that survey out soon. And the survey is going to ask the campus community, what needs to be changed about each area, what strategies could be included, what could be excluded. And, we learned a couple of lessons over the years in terms of doing these surveys. So back when we did the SWOT analysis for the strategic plan, the strategic plan that is our current strategic plan, it was a very long document, and people were quite overwhelmed by it. And then another thing we learned too is that the mission, vision, and values survey, what happened was we got a lot of feedback for the mission, but as people progressed through the survey and we finally got to the values, the feedback was less robust there. So what we've done with the survey is we've actually, each person will give a chance to give feedback on each of the 5 areas of the strategic plan. And if they complete the whole survey, they can give feedback on all 5 areas. But those areas will be randomly represented. So you might get area 2 first, or area 4 first, or area 5 first. That way, if someone is like, man, this is a lot of work, I really only want to get feedback on these 2 areas, at least we get representation amongst all of the areas in terms of the feedback. So we've randomized which area of the strategic plan people will give feedback on within the survey. And that's going to happen between January 15th and February 11th. And then in early February, we're also going to conduct campus-wide forums to gather feedback on potential revisions. So keep an eye out for announcements as to when those will be scheduled. Those will all be remote. So hopefully they'll be easier to attend. And then from February 15th to the 26th, the IE will attempt to objectively incorporate the initial feedback and present it to the PGC. And that's not the end of it, though. Oops, I went backwards. Okay. From March 1st to 31st, we'll take those revisions and gather additional feedback from campus constituencies, including the Senates, and incorporate those revisions in. And then we will seek a tentative final reaffirmation revision approval from the PGC and constituencies in April. And then there may need to be an extra meeting sometime in early May for the PGC to finalize that document. And then in the fall semester, since we will have specified our new strategies and goals, we'll begin discussion of new indicators of achievement and aligning those and simplifying them as well. So that's the process that we vetted through the Participatory Governance Council last semester. And as I was going through this, you can see that there's a lot of opportunities for campus for feedback throughout the process. So keep an eye out for that survey, keep an eye out for the forums, attend a PGC meeting, attend an academic senate meeting or classified senate meeting. These discussions will be happening and there'll be opportunities to to provide feedback on the strategic plan.
And just to add, the reason why we felt we could postpone the indicators of achievement was for 2 reasons. The first one is getting feedback specifically on goals and strategies. It's a lot to process and also a lot to solicit and ask of the participants to give that feedback. And secondly, because the plan would then go into effect pending approval, beginning with the 23 academic year, we have time in the fall semester to identify how we want to measure. Likely some of those will continue from our previous indicators of achievement. But if you reviewed our indicators of achievement document, it's quite lengthy. And we really want to get to the salient points that speak to how we meet and achieve our strategic plan goals. And so the hope is with the planning process is to focus on strategies and goals this spring so that we can begin implementing with the intent of, we still have indicators of achievement, but we'll be modifying those and affirming them in the fall so that by the end of the academic year in 2023, 2024, we have goals, indicators of achievement that we can measure and then report out on at the beginning of the spring wait a minute, I'm getting my years mixed up. At the beginning of the fall 2022 plan, at the beginning of the fall 2023, when we report out to PGC, we will have indicators of achievement that reflect the new plan. Did I lose? I think I lost track of the years, but I hope that makes sense.
I think you're good. I think that was right.
All right. And really that's it. I think, the main purpose why Paul and I and the IE tri-chairs, Rhonda and Claire, trying to make sure we communicate this out in advance, allow folks to understand the process and really build awareness to encourage participation in providing input. We plan to send out additional communication next week about the process, reiterating what we shared with you all here. And furthermore, like Paul mentioned, just so that you'll keep an eye out for those surveys. And also when we send out calendar information about the forums themselves, that, one, articulating what's to expect, being transparent about the timeline and what we hope to achieve. And that, like Paul mentioned, the various opportunities throughout that entire timeline to provide input or in order to arrive to an updated strategic plan. So I'll open that up to any questions about what we've, or concerns or things that we should consider when updating the plan. I'm looking to our three visitors.
Well, I was just here to make sure Senate got looped in, and I heard the word Senate enough times that I'm okay.
Okay. Great.
Rhonda's here, and Rhonda knows that. So.
Yes, yes. And, you know, we try to model the participatory governance decision-making process throughout. I mean, Julie, you and I were part of that effort of demonstrating how information flows and how decisions get made. So really calling that out and role modeling that with how we update the strategic plan. So thanks for affirming that we're on the right track. Brandy and John, any questions about the plan or the process? Definitely hope that you'll join us and participate with providing feedback. Okay. A few things then I'll drop in the chat. If you're curious, I'll drop in our, we recently updated our overview of our planning processes. If you care to learn more about strategic plan and districts plan and just how we do planning overall, Rhonda and I, Emily Bond and Cherie Fortin from previously of the Resources Committee tried to really codify and bring up to speed our, our planning processes in general. So I'll make sure that's a resource made available here as well. Paul, Rhonda, or Claire, any closing remarks while I drop that link in the chat?
I just want to add that it's exciting time to see our incorporation of the We Won't Fall campaign. And so just really appreciate our foresight in the planning for the horizon and incorporating the good work that the constituency leadership has embarked upon these last 2 years while we've been working remote, pandemic, fighting for racial justice. And it's just wonderful to see it start to gel in our college process and strategic planning. Thanks for a great presentation, Paul, Sabrina, Rhonda.
Oh. Brandy, were you going to say something? It's such a small group. I can see everyone's
I thought you got zoomed because you were talking, but I couldn't hear you. So I was leaning in to see if my internet went unstable or something, but I was like, no, she's on mute. No, that was it. I was listening.
Okay. Rhonda, would you like to share any comments?
Yeah, I just would thank people for being here and being representative of the campus. And Julie, yes, I will be making a presentation at our local Senate as well. I think we shared the beginnings of the process at the end of the fall semester. So we'll be looping everybody in as we move forward.
All right. So with that, I'm sure everyone would appreciate getting a few minutes of their noon hour back so that you can take a pause and prep for the next session. Just want to plug, if you are concerned about COB processes, Teresa, Katie, and Dave from Resources are doing a presentation at 2, just kind of running this gamut of all things integrated planning. And we do have a full slate of afternoon sessions too. And I look forward to seeing you this afternoon and perhaps throughout tomorrow as well. And if not, I'll see you on Friday morning. So take care, everyone. And thank you for taking the time to join us.